Coming up on Cronkite News, there are excessive heat warnings across much of the state. We'll tell you about the heat restrictions in your area.
Also, we'll tell you about how the government is working with journalists to fight misinformation.
And later, if you've noticed your bill getting higher when you go out to eat, you aren't alone. We'll be diving deep into restaurant inflation.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Ethan Ryder.
And I'm Jessica Herrera. Thank you for joining us. Heat is the #1 weather-related killer, and here in Arizona, high temperatures are coming. That could lead to ER visits and even deaths. Connor Cox is in the Cronkite Weather Center with the details.
If you had outdoor weekend plans in the valley, you might want to rethink them. We have our first excessive heat warning of the year, affecting a little more than half of Arizona. As you can see here, the entire western part of the state is at the mercy of the sun for the next 4 days. So what's that mean? When heat warnings go into effect, trails close down. You will not be able to hike Camelback or any of the trails on Piestewa Peak Trailhead from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you want to hike other trails, early morning or late evening is the way to go. So when will we see this relief? I'll have your full forecast later in the show.
Last year, more than 2,800 people went to the ER for heat-related illnesses. You need to stay hydrated, and if you don't have air conditioning, head to a heat relief shelter. Salvation Army Emergency Disaster Services, EDS, is activating heat relief stations across the valley. Starting today through June 12th, anyone in need of indoor cooling and hydration can seek out one of these 11 stations. The Salvation Army EDS is part of the Maricopa Association of Governments Heat Relief Regional Network. The goal of the network is to provide resources to prevent heat-related illnesses and deaths, especially among vulnerable populations. For more info and where to find these and other stations across the valley, visit azmag.gov/heat relief.
The Summit of Americas begins today in Los Angeles, but ahead of it, the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications held a first-of-its-kind media summit at the ASU California Center in downtown LA. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken headlined the event. Reporter Emily Miranda was there and tells us how the United States planned to fight misinformation in the Americas.
This lies at the heart of our democracy.
Mauricio Sanchez is a Colombian journalist working for Studio 3 Multimedia in New York. One of dozens of journalists from across the Americas gathered for the Media Summit of the Americas. They are here to discuss strengthening the critical role media plays in democracies. Secretary of State Antony Blinken talked about ways to build democracies through the press, the first to tackle dis and misinformation.
We've seen how these falsehoods can polarize communities, poison the public square, undermine people's trust in health systems, government institutions, in democracy itself.
The dean of the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, Batinto Batts, gave opening remarks. He says Cronkite plays an important role.
It's our responsibility to make as many people as possible aware of, the power of media, the importance of media, the responsibility that media has. And then to play that, to be an educator and to empower people to utilize media and to, spreading, messaging and accuracy, promoting accuracy.
The U.S. Special Advisor for the Summit of the Americas, Debbie Mucarsel-Powell, says free press is in danger in many places across the Americas.
But a threat against the free press is a threat to democracy itself, because it erodes the ingredients that democracies need to function.
Security is tight here in Los Angeles. Barriers surround the convention center as the Summit of Americas begins today. So Blinken took the opportunity during the media summit to announce a new hub of the Digital Communication Network for the Americas, a tool to fight misinformation and encourage a free press.
The same is true for free, independent press across the hemisphere. It has to exist, now more than ever, for the well-being of our people, for the well-being of our communities, for the well-being of our democracies.
To help do that, the Biden administration is giving financial aid to at-risk media, including $30 million to the International Fund for Public Interest Media. In Los Angeles, Emily Miranda, Cronkite News.
Batts says this event is Cronkite's most significant work so far. He looks forward to seeing what Cronkite will do next and who else they can engage in the process. After Matthew McConaughey's impassioned speech yesterday, the House is meeting to debate the Protecting Our Kids Act. The act includes raising the purchasing age for semi-automatic weapons from 18 to 21. It also aims to federally outlaw bump stocks. Bump stocks, which allow the user to pull the trigger of their gun faster, were previously banned under Trump. The debate begins with the House hearing from senators expressing their concerns and parents of Uvalde victims urging them to act.
As an elected official, it is your duty to draft legislation that protects Zaire and all of the children and citizens in this country. Common sense gun laws are not about your personal feelings or beliefs. You are elected because you have been chosen and are trusted to protect us. But let me say to you here today, I do not feel protected.
The Biden administration fully supports the act, and later this week, Congress will be discussing a red flag law. The red flag law will remove access to guns briefly for people deemed a danger to themselves or others.
The Havasupai Nation submitted testimony yesterday in an attempt to protect the Grand Canyon. The Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources received the testimony in regards to the Grand Canyon Protection Act. The act, introduced by Senators Mark Kelly and Kirsten Sinema, would ban on mining lands outside the park. And conservationists say the act will allow water resources to be protected as well. The bill, though, would not stop a uranium mine from going into development. The mine would be near the South Rim, which is extremely close to the Havasupai lands. The tribe is concerned its water supply will be affected. With appeals worn out, Frank Atwood finally faced execution this morning. At 10:16 this morning, Atwood was executed. He is Arizona's second execution this year and the 39th since 1992. His last stay was denied an hour prior to his death, but he was allowed his spiritual advisor to pray over him as he died. When Atwood was asked for his final statement, he responded in part, quote, "I pray the Lord will have mercy on all of us and that the Lord will have mercy on me." He also thanked his wife, friends, and legal team.
The race in the Republican primary for governor has gotten almost too close to call. An OH Predictive Insights poll of likely Republican voters placed Kari Lake at 23% and Karen Taylor Robson at 21%. In April, the same company had Lake at 29% to Robson's 22%. Matt Salmon, the third candidate, has jumped up in the poll at 14%. But with 38% of Republican voters seemingly undecided, it's hard to know which way it will go. The margin of error is 5.85%. Governor Doug Ducey signed a ban on gender reassignment surgery into law March 30th. Critics have accused the bill of attacking trans youth, but trans kids aren't the only ones affected. The bill is targeted at preventing physicians from providing irreversible gender reassignment surgery to anyone under 18 years old. Experts say intersex kids will also be hurt by the bill. Intersex refers to various conditions where a child is born with physical sex characteristics different from the traditional male-female binary. While the law does make an exception for these children, intersex advocates like Bria Brown-King say this only causes further harm to both groups. This is because it is common for intersex youth to be given medically unnecessary gender-normalizing procedures when they are too young to consent. Brown-King says it's not just about accessing care that is wanted by the kids affected, but bodily autonomy.
Coming up after the break, take a close look at your next meal receipt. You may see an additional charge on your next restaurant check, and we'll explain why owners are taking on those extra fees.
And later, we'll get into what the GOP wants in the budget for next year.
What you get from Washington Week that you will not get anywhere else are the best and the brightest reporters from different media companies, and they're able to have a real conversation about things that are happening in Washington and around the country. But it's also a show about issues that are relevant to different communities. How do you think that, as the moderator, I feel this deep responsibility to bring in those other perspectives so that people understand how power and politics impact their daily lives.
Friday nights at 7 on Arizona PBS.
Hey, I'm Rick Steves. You know, I don't go anywhere without my passport. And now, thanks to PBS Passport, you can travel with me and watch all 10 seasons of Rick Steves Europe and all my travel specials. This exclusive streaming service is just for our members. Not only can you see all my shows, but you can see thousands of hours of your favorite public television shows. Become a member today and get your passport.
If you've been out to eat lately, you may have noticed your check is a little larger. It may even be half because of an inflation added on. Well, the recent increase in prices across the nation means restaurants have to increase their prices on food items too. I found out what Arizona restaurant owners are doing to stay in business during trying times.
These quesadillas are a specialty at Chino Bandito, an eatery that specializes in blending traditional flavors from Mexican and Asian cuisines. But lately, they've been costing a lot more to make.
I actually did better during COVID than I am now.
Inflation is hitting everyone, especially restaurants.
I think the only way that I'm surviving it is unfortunately increasing prices and trying to keep up with just the day-to-day supply issues.
The current average profit margin for restaurants is 5 to 6%. This industry, like many others, is directly affected by the rising costs of produce and other ingredients. Eve Collins, Chino Bandito restaurant owner, says prices for common items like food boxes and utensils have also increased due to inflation.
So many things that we have are related to fuel. They're related to oil. So your styrofoam, your containers, your plastics.
Steve Chukri, president and CEO of the Arizona Restaurant Association, says that daily living costs and the current state of our economy adds on to the stress many business owners are experiencing.
Inflation and increasing gas prices really are a thief to discretionary income. And that's what we thrive on in the industry. You're going to pay your mortgage or your rent and your car payment first, and then what's left over gets spent in a restaurant.
On top of inflation, according to the 2022 State of the Restaurant Industry report, 96% of operators experienced a shortage of key food items.
You expect to receive certain goods and services at your back door, at your kitchen door, in our case, and you're short something or the other. And that's hard to plan for in the restaurant business.
So the next time you crave that Jade Red chicken for dinner, know that you may have to pay a little more to enjoy it.
According to the National Restaurant Association, food, labor, and occupancy costs are expected to remain elevated throughout this year, but predict the economy will slowly start to improve and give customers much needed relief.
With less than a month until the deadline, the Arizona legislature is working on passing a budget. The details of the budget were handed out earlier this week, but not everyone is happy with it. The new budget is $4 billion more than last year, which came in at about $12 billion. And Senator Paul Boyer, a Republican, has criticized the budget for not doing enough for education, which is an issue. If Boyer or another Republican isn't on board, the budget is going nowhere. Lawmakers have until July 1st, when the fiscal year starts, to pass a new budget. But until then, we'll have to wait and see.
A new law is putting protections in place for some homeowners from the Homeowners Association. Governor Doug Ducey signed a bill protecting some flags from HOA restrictions. The bill allows any flag supporting law enforcement first responders, and POWMIA to be free of HOA restrictions. There is currently no safety offered to citizens who wish to fly gay pride or Black Lives Matter flags unless their HOA approves. The bill's sponsor, Representative John Kavanagh, says he would support a bill allowing any flag as long as it wasn't obscene or promoting illegal activity.
Temperatures are going to be dangerously high this weekend. We go back to Connor Cox in the Cronkite News Weather Center with the forecast.
Hope you're having a good Wednesday, folks. As I said earlier in the show, we have an active heat warning in effect until Sunday. So the next 72 hours, cloud cover, we're not seeing a whole lot. You have some light clouds coming up on Thursday, and once they're gone, they're gone. We are not going to get much coverage from them at all throughout the weekend. Heading into tonight, you're going to see effects of that heat warning already. 107 at dinner time, and then when you're tucking the kids in for bed, still triple digits. That AC is going to be working overtime tonight. Tomorrow, we're going to be seeing 110 in Phoenix, 105 in Tucson. Only place to really find relief is heading up 17 to Flagstaff. If you do want some relief, I recommend swimming. However, if we're swimming tomorrow, make sure we are putting on sunblock. Why? The UV index is going to be a 10 out of 11 tomorrow, folks. Means you can get a sunburn as little as 15 minutes. And our 8-day forecast, we are going to be seeing 110 is actually the lowest temperature going into the weekend. And on Sunday, 113 again to finish it off. There's no way around it, folks. It's going to be a hot one. In the Cronkite Weather Center, I'm Connor Cox.
Oh man, talk about a lot of scorchers coming up. I'm Ian Sachs. Coming up after the break, I'll have your Cronkite Sports Report. The Sun Devils step to the line in the NCAA Track and Field National Championships, how one middle distance runner is making a name for himself in the 800 meter. That's next.
And that's the way it is. Monday, September.
Newscasting has changed a lot since the time of Walter Cronkite. That's why here at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism, you can learn the studio production skills of today in real time. Whether you want to work audio, direct, technical direct, design graphics, or you can even run the floor. It's all part of the Television Production and Graphics Lab here at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. We're going on in 3, 2...
Did you know newsrooms today are looking for bilingual journalists? Cronkite Noticias prepares you to cover diverse communities. In Cronkite Noticias, you will obtain an unforgettable experience.
Nopales como este van a tumbar.
Cronkite Noticias.
And develop your skills with the latest technology.
Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications Phoenix Sports Bureau provides students with hands-on learning experiences and opportunities in sports journalism. From covering local high schools, colleges, and the pros, students get the opportunity to go live from our Facebook shows covering local, collegiate, and pro sports in the Valley. From digital reporting, broadcast, social media, and producing, there's opportunities for all. For more, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Welcome back to the Cronkite Sports Report. I'm Ian Sachs. A local standout runner, Dayton Carlson, was named to the Arizona High School Gatorade Boys Cross Country Athlete of the Year. Now he's heading to the NCAA National Championships for the Sun Devils as the lone freshman in the 800-meter race. Cronkite News reporter Lauren Green has the story on Carlson's journey to this moment.
Dayton Carlson was a local running star who came out of Castile High School with dominance in multiple races, winning the 800, 1600, and 3200 meters at state just a year ago. As a freshman at Arizona State this year, Carlson's talent was no surprise for head cross-country coach Patrick Hinner.
I mean, he was running some really fast 4x4 splits in high school for a distance runner. He had a great cross-country seasons, a very good 2-mile. So when somebody has that kind of range, it definitely indicates a lot of talent and a high ceiling.
In a race that came down to the wire, Carlson took the silver in the 800 at the Pac-12 Outdoor Championships, running at 1:48.98. A week later, at the NCAA Western Preliminary Meet, he ran a personal record of 1:47.79 that punched his ticket to the biggest stage in college track.
I think it's going to be fun to get out there and get some experience with the top guys in the nation. I'm really excited for it, and I think I can make it to the final round and do really well.
Dayton's claim to track started from a young age in Gilbert.
Dayton's been running since he was in kindergarten. He brought home a little blue first place ribbon from running club, and he just kind of took off from there.
The 19-year-old developed a natural leadership in the sport, which stemmed from being the oldest of 3 kids and learning responsibility at an early age.
He's been raised in a single parent home, and with that comes a lot of challenges. He's had to take a lot of leadership.
But it was his high school coach at Castile, whom Carlson had known since kindergarten, that helped take his running to the next level. And so his national meet debut came as no surprise to Coach Lemieux.
Nothing surprises me with that kid because he is an extremely hard worker, and he sets his goals very high and works very hard to achieve those goals.
Seems like every time Dayton crosses the line, he's moving his way up the Sun Devil leaderboards. And no matter how he does at the NCAA championships, he's already made some ASU history with the times he's clocked so far this season.
I'm really excited to keep going with this because so far I've been able to, I think I'm number 4 on ASU's 800 list, and it hasn't been touched since 2012. So I'm ready to touch more of those leaderboards in the next couple years.
In Tempe, Lauren Green, Cronkite News.
Carlson makes his NCAA debut tonight at 6:14 at Hayward Field. A rally to support Mercury star Brittany Griner was held in her hometown of Houston on Monday. Griner has spent over 100 days in a Russian prison after being arrested in February on alleged drug charges. The Biden administration has labeled her status as wrongfully detained. Trevor Reed, a former U.S. Marine who spent nearly 3 years as a Russian prisoner, spoke at the rally in support of Griner and fellow detainee Paul Whelan.
There is no justice in Russia. Brittany and Paul will not receive justice in Russia. They're not going to receive a fair trial. They will not receive a fair investigation. They will be there as hostages until the United States gets them out.
Phil Mickelson is among the big names to jump ship from the PGA Tour to the newly created LIV Golf Series. A string of players have joined the tour this week, including Dustin Johnson, Bryson DeChambeau, and Patrick Reed. Mickelson has been absent from the PGA for a couple of months, this after his controversial remarks about the Saudi-backed Golf Series downplaying Saudi Arabia's record on human rights. The former ASU star will play in the U.S. Open next week on an exemption granted by the USGA. It'll be Lefty's first tournament since the Farmers Open in January and his first major of the season. And finally today, The Athletic is reporting that the Suns suffered a COVID outbreak at the end of their series against the Dallas Mavericks. 6 members of the team, including 1 player, reportedly tested positive, and this might explain why the Suns went from beating Dallas by 30 points in Game 5 to losing by a combined 60 in Games 6 and 7. Well, that's all for today's Cronkite Sports Report. Back to you, Ethan.
Thanks, Ian. How are you at reciting poetry? We'll tell you about one student from Coconino County and the contest he won for his poetry reading.
And that's the way it is. Monday, September.
Newscasting has changed a lot since the time of Walter Cronkite. That's why here at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism, you can learn the studio production skills of today in real time. Whether you want to work audio, direct, technical direct, design graphics, or you can even run the floor. It's all part of the Television Production and Graphics Lab here at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. We're going on in 3, 2...
Did you know newsrooms today are looking for bilingual journalists? Cronkite Noticias prepares you to cover diverse communities. In Cronkite Noticias, you will obtain an unforgettable experience.
Nopales como este van a tumbar.
Cronkite Noticias.
And develop your skills with the latest technology.
Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications Phoenix Sports Bureau provides students with hands-on learning experiences and opportunities in sports journalism. From covering local high schools, colleges, and the pros, students get the opportunity to go live from our Facebook shows covering local, collegiate, and pro sports in the Valley. From digital reporting, broadcast, social media, and producing, there's opportunities for all. For more, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
A Coconino High School graduate won high honors in a national poetry recitation contest. Oscar Manuel Landa Samano beat out competitors at several local and state level rounds. Samano ended up winning third place in the national finals of the Poetry Out Loud contest. Final rounds are normally held in Washington, D.C., but since the pandemic, students have submitted video recordings of their readings. One of the poems Samano read was Spanglish by Tato Oliveira.
Spanglish. Bicultural systems, scientific, lexicographical, intertextual integrations. Two expressions, existentially wired.
Samano was awarded $5,000 and his school was given $500 for the purchase of poetry materials. Poetry Out Loud is put together by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Poetry Foundation.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.